We need to shift the question to, should a woman have an abortion, to what is her story? What are the complexities of her life? Why does she need to make this decision?
But I lived barely.
Wow.
And I just don't think that lawmakers have any say over what we need for our bodies.
I'm doing a clerkship for 2 years, and then after that I would like to go into public interest law. I've wanted to be a public defender. So.
Do any of you have a few minutes? Would you be willing to go on camera to do a short interview? So I'm independent. Excuse me. I just have a hobby of interviewing people about their ideas and where they come from. If you look at the back, you can see the general idea of the concept. So I just ask neutral questions, and then, if people don't like the interview, I won't post it. But
Okay.
it's usually like 10 minutes or so. But
I just gave some. Would you like to do this? Yeah, we can. This is Jamie Manson, president of Catholics for Choice.
awesome.
So we can do that if
Perfect. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, is it okay
Thank
if
you.
we stick around?
Oh yeah, sure. You got it. Okay, so I think I heard your name was
Jamie.
Jamie. All right.
Jamie.
Jamie. Awesome. So, Jamie, what group did you say you were with?
I am president of Catholics for Choice.
Catholics for Choice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right here on the button.
Gotcha. So clearly you're out here supporting abortion rights.
Yes.
And I'm interested in how people get to their position. So I like to find out, what brought you to the position you're at, and how confident you are in that belief, and what could change your mind, if anything. So maybe I should just ask, first of all, what does it mean to have abortion access?
Well, I mean, for women, it means access to freedom. It means access to power. It means access to economic independence, political power. It means so many things. When you can control your own fertility, it opens up opportunities that you would not have.
Gotcha. So any restrictions on that abortion access would prevent these freedoms, these the power dynamic changes.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, because you're forcing women to give birth, essentially, and not giving them a choice.
You're forcing women to give birth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is, to me, a total violation of human dignity.
So it's a violation of human dignity to force someone to have a child.
Yes, against their will.
Against their will.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so what do you, if you were to put your belief that, could I phrase your belief as all women should have access to abortion?
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Absolutely.
So if we say all women should have access to abortion, on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is all questions, you're not convinced, and 100 is absolutely certain, there's no way I could even change my mind.
Yeah.
Where would you place yourself on that
I'm
scale?
at 100
You're at
for this
100.
one. Absolutely, absolutely. Abortion has happened from the beginning of time. 1 in 4 women has an abortion. This is a very ordinary part of life. It's part of the church. It's part of, it's just part of humanity for all of history. So, and women will keep getting abortions, even if Roe falls and it becomes illegal.
Is one of the reasons you support the access, is that partly because of the historical access that it's been occurring in the past as well?
Yeah, it's a part of life.
Okay.
And it's a part that women must be able to control their own fertility, essentially.
Gotcha.
And they should have that right. Because again, it is about their freedom. And we have a church that thinks women are not equal, that thinks women should be subservient, that keeps pushing this idea. So the church also believes it is about power. They'll claim it's about babies and all of this. But if that were true, if they really cared about life, why don't they put all of their money and all their support behind policies and childcare and maternal mortality and maternal health and making sure there's, food and education for children?
So
Why don't
do you
support those policies?
It sounds like so the Catholic Church is officially against abortion.
Yeah,
right?
life. They believe life begins at conception, and anything else is homicide.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you rectify those two issues of being a Catholic and being pro-abortion access?
Well, because the Catholic Church has a lot of interesting teachings in its tradition. One is we have the idea of individual conscience, and that we are supposed to follow our conscience as God's given gift, regardless, even if it conflicts with the law. We believe in social justice, and the fact is that abortion bans disproportionately impact people who are already poor and vulnerable. We have an understanding of religious freedom. That religious freedom means freedom from and of religion, meaning that one individual's religious belief should not be codified into law. And that's what we're seeing happening right now.
Okay. And if another person were to come up and be totally against, they say that there should be no women's access, right? What do you think their primary reasons for that are?
I don't know what motivates anyone individually. Perhaps they have trauma, perhaps they have a story. I think the most important thing is when this became a political issue. And it became a political issue in the late 70s when evangelical Christians saw that it was a very powerful way to animate their right-wing base. They saw Catholics successfully politically campaigning with abortion, fear about abortion. And so they took their strategy from Catholics and basically put the strategy on steroids. I mean, you can see a very deliberate shift to this as a political issue.
I'm kind of wondering about if someone were on the other side and they were just as convinced as you are on this side, right? How would we change our minds if we're at 100% confident and we don't see any room for shifting?
Right.
How do we resolve those differences, or can we?
I don't know if we can, but I feel like there are people who are, the issue is so stigmatized and so taboo that they're afraid to think about it. They're afraid to speak about it.
Yeah.
So I think opening up a place where we can speak about it without this extreme polarization
Right.
would be helpful, because a lot of people don't find they fall into either camp. And to say that that's okay, but let's get the education we need about the issue. Let's listen to women's stories who have had abortions. Let's think about them first, and their choices and the decisions that they need to make for their lives and for the very trajectory of their lives, which is impacted by whether or not they have a child.
So that we should be listening to each other and having these discussions out in public.
I think so. In a non-polarized way, where we are really we need to shift the question to, should a woman have an abortion, to what is her story? What are the complexities of her life? Why does she need to make this decision she needs to make? Because I think if we ask that question instead, the reason for abortion becomes much clearer. And I think we can have much more compassion and understanding.
Gotcha.
And
can you imagine any scenario that would, I know you're already at 100, but would there be a way to increase your confidence to be more convinced that women need access?
No, I'm pretty confident. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think I could get more confident because I've listened to the stories of people.
And it sounds like there's nothing that you think could bring you down off of that.
No, I believe
that
it is.
view
It is a
either.
human right. I believe it is a human right, just as that many other things are human right. Right to health care, right to access clean water.
And could I ask why do you believe it's a human right to have that access?
Because it has such profound impact on a pregnant person's life and the whole trajectory of their life. It's about their freedom. It's about their ability to control their own fertility. It's about their ability to get economic power, to get social power, political power, to grow, to be truly equal to men. I mean, I believe fundamentally in women's equality, and this is the most important piece to getting women's equality.
So if there's some other thing that's preventing equality for women, should that also be like a human right as well, that you would be just as convinced on?
Yeah, I mean, look, our Constitution does not guarantee equal rights to women. It only guarantees rights to men. So what we need to have a constitutional amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment, stating this clearly, that we are equal. That equality of rights cannot be abridged or denied on the basis of sex. That's really what this is about.
Are there any situations where you think people's rights should not be equal? Like, might there be scenarios where we might want to restrict
individual rights? I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
I guess I'm thinking of like any hypothetical situation. So we have these rights of freedom and liberty and all and the right towards thriving in the world, I guess, is the way we could say it.
Yeah.
Do you see any justification for not allowing someone to have those that freedom? I mean,
no.
Should we ever take away people's freedom, like even in like criminal situations or anything like that?
Well, I mean, there are certain, you can have freedom until you do harm to someone or you threaten someone's life and things like that.
Okay.
People threaten my life regularly because of my work.
Right.
Do I think they should have the freedom to do that? No.
Okay.
But that's the basic.
Sure. Yeah, no
you.
problem.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jamie.
Sure, my pleasure.
I really appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.
And
Nice to meet
did you have any other comments or questions? that we didn't
No.
want to
Thank
cover?
you for your questions.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So much. Yeah, I'll give you my card right here.
Thank you.
Has anyone got a few minutes for an interview? Five or 10 minutes? Awesome. Let me just set up here. This is my channel. I'm independent hobbyist, really. I talk to people about their ideas. You can take a look at the back and get a sense of the general idea of the conversations. I try to ask neutral questions and learn about how people come to their conclusions is the idea. Is that okay?
How long will this take?
We can set a timer if you want. I can set it for 5 minutes if you want to keep it short, or...
Okay, 5 minutes.
Okay, let's do that. Let me just set this.
People should be donating directly to the people that are supporting people's access to abortions right now. If you need support on where to get vetted information.
I already had it on 6 minutes, but I'm just going to set it up. Thank you. If you could stand here and I'll just set this up real quick. It's up to you, actually, and you can leave it on is fine. I have the mic. I mean, the sound might be better without it if you're okay with that. Thank you. Yeah, and do you mind if I clip on it?
No.
Okay. Just clip it here. And clip it on this side. Okay, that should be perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
taking your time. What was your name?
I'm Stephanie.
Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm Brendan.
Brendan. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, I see you're out here. It looks like you're on you're approving for abortion.
I'm pro-life.
Pro-life.
Not pro-life. I'm pro-choice.
Pro-choice. I'll cut that part.
Actually, it's also pro-life because it's protecting women's lives.
It's protecting women's
It's a
lives.
health issue. Abortion is a health issue. That's why I say I'm pro-life, because my life was saved because I was able to get a hysterectomy when I had a problem. At first, they wouldn't take out my bleeding uterus because I was still within childbearing age.
Wow.
And I damn near came close to death.
Oh my gosh.
And that's because anti-choice people have had so much sway in the medical field, and people with ectopic pregnancies, all kinds of women need access to health care.
Yeah.
And banning abortion bans health care. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
It
so you're
should.
saying that, so I can't believe that happened to you, first of all. I'm so sorry.
It was
that
hideous.
It sounds awful. So you had a medical situation that you needed to have this surgery, and they almost denied it?
They did for about 24 hours, and I was bleeding to death. I had to have an emergency hysterectomy.
And the explanation that the doctors gave to you was that it was because you were of childbearing?
They were going to have me keep my uterus and keep taking medications like hormones to keep it intact to stop the bleeding because I still could possibly have a child.
I see.
And I was almost 40, I was 42 years old.
Right.
And I didn't want any more children, and I was dying.
Wow. And had you told them at the time?
Yes.
And
I had no choice.
Wow.
Finally, a doctor, when I re-entered when I was still in the emergency room, I screamed for my husband, and my husband got to a doctor and explained the situation, and he took one look at me and he said, emergency hysterectomy now.
Wow.
And the fibroid and it was removed, but I lived barely.
Wow.
And I just don't think that lawmakers have any say over what we need for our bodies.
Yeah.
And we have the right to control our medical decisions. This is a health care issue.
Yeah.
And it's affecting all women.
And I can see how passionate you are about it because it's affected you personally. And I'm sure that, like, if there's the main reason that you would say that you're pro-choice and having that right that's so important to you, what do you think is the most important reason for you?
The most important reason is that women should have the decisions over the autonomy of their body. They should not be forced bearers of children, victims of incest and of rape and of spousal or male abuse. They should not dictate when we should carry a baby. I advocated in the court system. I was the director of a rape crisis clinic, and I worked with victims, teenagers that were carrying their dad's babies. I worked with molest victims. I worked with wives that were raped. I worked my whole adult life. Whatever job I did, librarian to advocate, I come across women that are forced to bear children or be manipulated by people in Washington, D.C. Saying what's right. And that's not right. We have control of our own destiny health-wise. Every man has that opportunity, and every woman should too.
Right. I totally understand what you're saying.
I know I'm pretty passionate.
No,
right?
It's justifiable that I can understand why you would feel that way. If I could summarize, I think you're saying that women should have rights over their bodies fundamentally, and to make these laws that restrict abortion access, that is dictating what happens within someone. Is that?
No, it's just that it's pulling off abortion and saying that is illegal. That's different from health care.
It's different from health care.
It is health care.
Yeah.
We have people that choose to have abortions for many reasons, and a lot of them have to do with health care.
What?
And it's just social justice to let a person decide what can happen with their bodies.
What do you think, and that's, my time's up, so let me do the last question, is what do you think is the main argument you've heard against abortion?
The main argument I've heard is that the unborn or the massive cells that becomes a fetus is more important than the living woman who's carrying it. And it's cells.
Right.
I don't believe that that's an equal. A woman's body is supreme. We're living beings.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everything you.
So I hope people see that and agree with me.
I will do my best.
I have your card.
Oh, you got it. Good.
Yeah.
Let me get your
Contact.
spelling and your email, if that's okay.
Sure.
Do you have a few minutes for an interview by any chance? I just do independent questions, neutral questions, like for YouTube. It's a hobby of mine. I like to learn about how people come to their ideas, and I don't know if...
Sure.
What? Thanks. My name is Brendan, by the way. What's your name?
Abby.
Abby? Nice. And you don't even have to get up. I'll just come sit next to you, if that's okay. Thank you, Abby.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this?
I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're disgusting that Roe's being essentially overturned
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. I think it'll have overarching consequences for lots of other Supreme Court cases. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once the court has shown that they don't really care about stare decisis anymore, it's not, there's no trusting that any precedent is safe anymore.
So your concern is partly about the precedent that's being set by overturning this. The legal aspects is a big part for you.
Yeah, and even the language that was used in the draft opinion was like such strong language that hasn't been used in like any other case except for, landmark civil rights cases related to slavery. So I don't know, I just really can't even wrap my head around this. I'm obviously pro-choice, and if people are against abortion, then they don't have to get one.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they can tell other people what to do with their bodies. And I'm graduating from law school in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And this is definitely not what we learned about in school. So.
Are you going into a field where you'd be involved in cases like this, do you think, or?
I absolutely will want to help people and defend doctors and defend women. I'm doing a clerkship for 2 years, and then after that I would like to go into public interest law. I wanted to be a public defender, so sorry, that yeah, definitely public interest law is why I went to law school.
Why you came here. Yeah. So when you read the case, you said that the language was particularly strong and that it was unprecedented. What do you think is the reason that this is happening?
It's always been a divisive issue, something that politicians run on, and we've been hearing for a long time now that there was a goal to overturn Roe v. Wade, and I just think a lot of people didn't realize that it could actually happen. But yeah, I don't know. And the sad thing is that it's disproportionately going to affect people of lower socioeconomics and minorities, and it's just
it's definitely going to have far-reaching consequences across the country, no question. Do you think that? So you think that clearly you think that Roe v. Wade was correctly adjudicated the first time. What brought you to that conclusion?
That was a long time coming as well, and I guess I understand why people think that the reasoning in it was maybe shaky, and they're correct. There's nothing in the Constitution that specifically addresses abortion. That's what they mentioned in this opinion. But there are a lot of things that the Supreme Court rules on that are not directly addressed in the Constitution, and this is about bodily autonomy and access to health care and making choices for your own body. And it's just really insane that they're apparently, women don't have a right to those things according to the current majority opinion that was released. I also really don't have much faith that it'll change. I think that will be the ruling of the court in the end.
Do you think that, so even if the justices were to change, you think that it probably would remain this way without changes to the Constitution, essentially?
No, I'm just saying I don't think any of the justices will change
their opinion, just presently with the current court as it stands.
Yeah.
I see. Do you, in the situation of the question of whether Roe v. Wade was correctly decided in the first place, like, where would you place your confidence on a scale like 0 to 100? Like 0 being totally not sure either way if it was decided correctly, 100 being absolutely no question, I couldn't even change my mind. Where would you place yourself on that scale?
I 100% think that access to abortions is a human right. So, so far as that is concerned, I 100% think it was decided correctly. Yeah.
What do you think of if there was another person? I mean, there's lots of people here that are convinced the opposite, right? How could we resolve those differences?
I think that's part of the problem, is it's really difficult. A lot of those opinions stem from religion and beliefs about conception or whatever. I'm more concerned about the women who are alive right now, who have a right to autonomy. That is a given. We can debate about fetuses all day long, but there's no doubt that women have a right to bodily autonomy. And that, to me, is where the conversation should end. And having the government get involved in medical decisions is just astounding to me. And obviously, not every state will outlaw it. I think we can predict what states will. So it's just sad to me that certain people from those states without means or the ability to travel to another state to get access are being forced to make a really, really horrible decision that they shouldn't have to make. And I'm concerned, abortions won't stop, but safe abortions will. And I think this will lead to a lot more death and harm, obviously. And so if life is what people are so concerned about, then the hypocrisy is astounding, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think that if there was someone who didn't have, like I spoke to someone earlier today that didn't have religious reasons, that just believed in that, like you say, the cells at conception are human and should have the same rights. Where do you think that is wrong in terms of the human? How does that work in relation to the bodily autonomy argument? I didn't phrase my question very well. Let me see if I can put it shorter.
Well, I guarantee you that there's a chance that person also doesn't necessarily support universal healthcare and access to things like birth control. So, there's a lot more to it, and it's the fact that they don't believe in a right to access things like contraceptives, and then they believe that if a woman does get pregnant, that she is forced to carry that child to full term. And then those people also do not support the necessary Social Security programs and healthcare programs to take care of these children who are now in the world and take care of these mothers. So yeah, it's easy to act self-righteous and like you're protecting this theoretical fetus, but I think that's a ridiculous argument, and I think that you're harming more people than you realize, and it's also just like diluting the discussion of pregnancy and why people get an abortion to an unrealistic level. And I think it's also people assume that getting an abortion is just something easy, and it's not. It affects women. It's not something that's taken lightly usually, but you know, that's their right and their decision. And I think a lot of states will outlaw abortion entirely. I don't think it's going to be, you know, after 12 weeks, whatever. Once the Supreme Court opens the floodgates, I think it'll just be entirely outlawed. And then we'll see things like going back to coat hangers, and that is terrifying to me and horrible if we're actually concerned about, you know, the right to life.
Yeah. And the last couple questions, and then I'll let you go. Thank you for your time. So you said you were about basically at 100 in terms of that women should have this right and that it is a human right. If there's something that you could see tomorrow or in the next 6 months that would shift you on that position, either up or down, maybe you would become even more convinced. Maybe we'll start there. What do you think could make you more convinced of this position?
Nothing. I think that, you know, you can believe in abortion, you cannot believe in abortion. The whole point of pro-choice is people get to make their own decisions. If you're opposed to abortions, then you don't get an abortion, but that doesn't mean that you can tell other people what to do. And I think even Joe Biden is personally, you know, opposed to abortion, but he's pro-choice because he supports a woman's right to choose, and that's what it comes down to, is a woman's right to choose. And there's nothing that would ever change my mind on that. And yeah, absolutely nothing.
So then I guess coming down from that, you don't see anything that would you don't see anything that would move you up or down, it sounds like.
No, I think right now we're moving backwards in history. And to say it's disappointing is an understatement, you know, of the century. So yeah, there's nothing that would change my mind on that.
What do you think about if somebody else, and this really will be my last question, if somebody else on the other side says that they're nothing that can change their mind, they're totally convinced, what do you think about that?
Well, I'd also be curious to know, you know, is this a man or a woman talking? Because the vast majority of women are pro-choice. I don't really care what men have to say about it. It's not their body. This is a woman's issue. And yeah, I'm kind of, you know, tired of watching the news and seeing, you know, an all-male panel discussing abortion and women's rights. And even this opinion, it's, you know, I think it's 4 men and 1 woman. I don't care what men have to say because it does not affect them or their bodies. So I think the amount of control they have over the discussion and over, you know, the outcome is extremely disappointing and wrong because it's a women's issue.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. Yeah, you can put that if you want. And congrats on graduation. That's huge. Law school. I mean,
A weird time.
yeah, well, like you say, definitely historic.